Hi everybody, my name is Andrea Bianchi. I am the head of training of Hera Training, which is the training arm of Hera Group, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the gas and power markets in the EU and the transition from commodity to flexibility trading. Some history regarding the EU market construction, which has started with the 1996 liberalization, which aimed to market efficiency, specialization, transparency, competitiveness, and to attract inward investments through price signals. Of course, the process had its own threats: insecurity of supply, the need for fair and simple policy making, and in the challenge of market regulation and monitoring. Which were the milestones? The breakup of monopolized supply, the third-party access to networks, the incentives to set realistic market prices, the privatization of formerly state-owned assets, and the creation of a competitive market as a final milestone. The other milestones were in terms of hub training venues development, liquidity, maturities, the number of players, and the market share of each player involved. This ladder summarizes the steps needed to build a functioning market. As we said, third-party access to network, bilateral trades, price discovery and disclosure through price editors such as Platts and ICES, balancing rules and standardized trading contracts such as EFET and ISDA contract, OTC broker trading to encourage transaction, the non-physical players, the financial players entering the market, the birth of future exchange, the development of a liquid forward curve, and indexes derived from hub prices for long-term contracts. All those steps will build a market transparency, a certain grade of anonymity needed to attract financial players through liquidity and volatility as well. Which type of contracts are used in the market? Negotiated contracts that are direct, non-regulated, non-standardized, and bilateral, where all the details must be negotiated, and this is the type of contract used for long-term contracts usually. Then there are OTC, non-regulated but standardized and bilateral contracts, such as the EFET for physical contracts and ISDA for paper contract. And then the exchanged, regulated and standardized contract, which is also clear, that can be both physical or paper depending on the product and the exchange. Some market taxonomy. The TSO, also known as network operator, is responsible for the physical balance of the network. To encourage market players to balance and transform a physical balancing system into a market balancing system, a balancing price is required. Every TSO has its own algorithm, even if harmonization is required by ENTSOG or ENTSOE. An hub, usually a natural gas hub, tend to be the heart of a gas infrastructure networks such as pipelines and liquefied natural gas terminal. The hub is used as a central pricing point for the network's natural gas. A VTP is a virtual trading point that is a non-physical hub within a network or a grid. A balancing price is the price to which every physical unbalance is settled within a network. It is the ultimate underlying for physical market players, can be very volatile and is usually settled within day or continuously, so it's not very functional because it can be completely hedged. The spot price is a price at which long and short position can be closed 1 or 2 days in advance, so it's usually the underlying of most financial contracts written on that market. An exchange is a trading venue where players can trade anonymously products delivered to a central hub. The exchange operator is responsible for the trading platform, where players show their interest and trade and nomination matching happens. When a settlement spot price is available with sufficient liquidity and trading becomes anonymous, financial derivatives become possible and desirable to boost liquidity, providing hedging for non-physical players through banks and financial institutions. But market monitoring becomes a must because of the leverage. The final step, an exchange that evolves, providing clearing services through margin calls and financial contracts, getting regulated and monitored, becomes a futures and derivative exchange. There are a lot of exchanges on the left, each related to national networks, but just some future exchanges that you can see on the right. So far, we made no distinction between gas and power markets, but they have very different fundamentals and footprint. The power market has a local footprint where every country has its own mix of local production. The commodity is not yet storable, at least not in very big quantities, which means that it is highly volatile. Sales and production happen at the same time instantaneously. It is a very short-term oriented market, and even more so. Greatly impacted by renewables and distributed generation, and it is usually indicated as a final destination market. It's the energy form most commonly used. The gas market, on the other side, has a continental or global footprint. Producers are scarce and localized, and there is a rising role for the LNG. The commodity is storable and production can be easily modulated, so the volatility is usually lower. Historically, it is long-term oriented. Now things are changing a little bit. It is in competition with other fossil fuels, nuke, and renewables for power generation. It is usually indicated as a transitional market. In some markets, as a larger footprint due to heating, for example, in Italy. In the link reported, you can find the peculiar energy mix of every EU country. As you will find, for example, Italy is very natural gas heavy, while France has a strong nuclear footprint, and Germany it's mixed with renewables and lignite, while Poland, for example, has a majority of coal production. In the current energy price crisis, every mix has its own reflection on power prices. As you can see on the picture, Italy and Spain are very well affected, while other countries, for example Poland, have cheaper energy prices. Meantime, the gas price convergence has happened till 2013. The decrease in demand, efficiency and renewables, and the surplus in supply and the efficiency in the use of cross-border capacity has contributed to the gas price convergence in Europe. The rise of shale gas in US and increasing Asian demand and a lot of investment in LNG have made the gas business a global business with worldwide fundamentals. The European Union has proposed phasing out long-term natural gas supply contracts as part of the bloc's energy transition plans. In conjunction with low storage inventory, a move made by Gazprom at the start of 2021, and the current Ukraine crisis have posed the perfect price term condition: low storage, hub indexation for the current long-term contracts, and a shortage of long-term contracts because the market have moved to short-term trading. All those conditions and the perfect storm we are facing have taken to the stage the old market versus security of supply dilemma, which was longly forgotten in the last 15 years. The price squeeze that we have seen resulted in unseen prices far over 100 euro megawatt hour and unseen premia over JKM, the Asian price reference. There's a big competition for gas, big LNG demand from the US. Energy has become a geopolitical issue, and European energy independence will be probably the next big discussion to come. Going to the renewables market impact, what we can say that considering the marginal cost of production of renewables is zero, there was a contraction in consumptions because of three economic crises plus the increased energy efficiency, means that some other commodity took the hit and has been replaced by renewables. Who took the hit from the rise of the renewables? To answer this question, we should address the so-called clean spark spread, which represents the production margin clean from emission. This formula is rather simple: the price of electricity minus the cost of the fuel divided by the efficiency of the production process minus the cost of carbon emission multiplied by a factor representing the ton of CO2 per megawatt hour given the fuel used. The K factor varies from 0.4 of natural gas up to almost 1 for coal. When referred to the spark spread is usually called dark spread, and the net from emission dark spread is called clean dark spread. So the clean spark spread has a big contribution from the carbon price, which varied a lot during the last 20 years, mainly because it's market driven by policy and politics. The reform of the ETS scheme in 2013, despite Brexit and COVID, the cost of carbon has risen over 30 euro per ton. Right now, the cost of carbon is between 85 and 90 euros per ton. So it has constantly risen over the last couple of years. And finally, what was the result of all those competition from renewables into the power market? Well, at least until early 2021 was coal who was displaced by the rise in the renewables. With the current gas price crisis, it is natural gas that is struggling, while coal is deeply into the money in terms of spark spread. There is, however, another side of the coin: the increasing cost of the security of supply. Demand is seasonal, weather-driven, dependent from economical cycle and prone to shocks. Well, wind and solar production is seasonal as well, strongly weather-driven, intermittent and not controllable. So renewables are not relieving demand stress to the grid, they are adding their own stress instead. We can try to quantify how much stress the balancing problems are put into the system by looking at the volatility between the day-ahead market and the balancing market. As you can see, the volatility is increasing, going from the spot day-ahead markets to the intraday markets, with a scale of 2 or even 3 times in terms of prices and volatility. Renewables are coming on top of that, posing new challenges for TSOs as well as for traders and quant. This statement from Platts clearly explains what was already happening in 2016. The baseload business model, the one made by power plants owners securing positive significant clean spark spread by futures in the market, was dead in 2016. Renewables killed it with a zero marginal cost, but a new business model emerged, offering balancing services to the TSO to counter renewable side effects. This changed the landscape. The value of the power plant didn't reside anymore in its efficiency, but in its flexibility in terms of production modulation and balance response. The balancing cost in Italy in 2020. The blue line is the Italy spot price, the so-called PUM. The red line is the price to settle unbalanced short position, and the green one is the price to settle long positions. You can observe an extra cost of almost €100 to balance short position versus the spot price and the discount of €40 in evaluating long positions. For a power plant offering balancing services, those may be revenues, and this has been with a minimum price of zero. Some markets have already experienced negative prices in balancing and spot markets. What we can say so far? EU targets for carbon emissions are tightening, and policymaking is supporting the vision, the ETS scheme and recovery and resilience facility, reaching for sustainability. The cost for the security of supply has dramatically increased because renewables are intermittent. The intrinsic cost generated by renewables is now mostly subsidized. What is the challenge? How can we increase the renewables generation without compromising the security of supply with sustainable cost, balancing price and balancing price volatility? So flexibility is a big issue as of today. One strategy explored by TSO in the quest to minimize the balancing cost has been the introduction of the so-called capacity market. TSO were looking to buy call or put options from the operators to contain the marginal cost of balancing with the payment of a fixed annual premium. This strategy is the exemplification of the new business model for power producer. The fixed premium can encourage investment in flexible assets rather than in pure production efficiency. Old assets may be interesting as well with a new point of view. Those are hydro-turbine plants that can operate as pump. During peak hours, they can produce energy, while in off-peak hour, they can work as pump, storing, if you like, energy in the form of water. They can be coupled with renewables production to create a complex plant with a combined output or managed as a portfolio of independent sources. In any case, the optimization process consists in the continuous optimization of a book of options. Cross-border capacities are the interconnection between national grids. To promote price convergence and to maximize the value of every country's own flexibility, their use should be maximized. The payoff of these capacities resembles the one of a call option on the price spread between the connected countries. Given that the fuel capacity is fully reversible, combined strategies are feasible, such as the so-called long strangle, which is a strategy that benefits the most of high volatile prices indifferently from the price trend direction. A CCGT plant in the balancing market has the payoff of a book of options as well. If If the power plants want to be able to respond to upward call and to downward call in an hourly production, it should be set to a middle production point that can imply a negative CSS. This negative CSS can be seen as the premium to a long straddle strategy option against the balancing price. The value of this production flexibility is maximum in the most volatile market, which is the balancing market. Another flexible asset, but in the gas world, is the storage. Gas storage are abundant and different in nature, being them from depleted reservoir, artificial or even temporary one. They can be seasonal or fast cycle, up to every degree of flexibility. But gas storage are abundant. Is it possible to use them to balance renewable production? Well, the answer is they may be. One idea could be the gas to power plants that can be imagined connected to a renewable production or even to the power grid itself. Through electrolysis, we can produce hydrogen that can be methaned and transformed into nat gas with an efficiency up to 70%. If the marginal cost of production is zero for renewables but balancing prices are negative, it may actually make sense. It can also decarbonize if the CO2 involved comes from capture. Well, the average marginal cost for the operation may be negative, but the intrinsic value is positive. It all depends on balancing price volatility. Many thanks for your time and have a nice day. Bye bye.